Good morning, Bitcoin. My name is Thomas Hunt, and this is Proof of Work. Proof of Work is a show about the people behind Bitcoin and how they got here. Today we're joined by Josh Scigala from Vaultoro. How's it going, Josh?
Awesome. Yeah, beautiful, very hot.
Yeah.
Winter is gone.
It's great to be in Berlin, but I think it's much like San Francisco. They don't have any air conditioning here.
No.
So it's only the beginning of the day and we're cooking a little already. So
Yeah, soak it up. After a long winter, that's what you want.
Yep. You need the heat, and the people are going outside and they're going crazy in the heat here.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to go ahead and start with everyone's most favorite and familiar question. What was your first computer?
Oh, my first computer. Actually, a friend of mine first got, the very first computer was more like a games console. It was the Atari 2600.
Nice.
So, friends had it. I was using that, and then Mum all of a sudden rang me and said, I'm getting a computer. I said, what? Really? And it was the Atari STE-FM.
Nice.
And a friend of mine had the Amiga, and it was always,
Atari versus Amiga,
Atari versus Amiga. I remember I used to always read the magazines and the little discs. The floppy disks would be on the front.
And where were you living at the time?
I was living in Adelaide.
Australia.
Australia, yeah. And I have actually the funniest story with that. I was pirating video games, all of 6 years old.
Yeah.
From friends at school, and with it was on tape. That's right. It wasn't floppy.
Oh, was it cassette tapes?
Yeah, it was cassette tapes.
So did you have two boom boxes, or how'd you do it?
Yeah, we basically just copied, and sometimes it would work, and sometimes it wouldn't. Where you just actually, do the dub. But one day, this was with cassettes, and we had all these cassettes going.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, there was a knock on my friend's door, and we opened the bedroom door, and there was a cop standing there. And our hearts just went like this, and the cop's like, walks over all our tapes, checks the windows. G'day boys, working with your computer, are you? We were like, yeah, big X copy on the screen. And apparently the deli next door had been broken into. They were just checking the windows. But
So it wasn't even for you. No, I thought it might be, don't copy that floppy, or maybe your parents are playing a trick on you, something like that. Yeah.
No, it was before, the idea of computer games being something that's worth anything.
Sure. When it was just Pong and stuff, just line graphics on the screen.
Yeah.
The code was relatively simple. Copying them didn't take that long.
So, but the Atari was an amazing computer. I really learned a lot on how to first use command line and learn about everything from how computers work, and it really got me interested. And I used to get these magazines that have all the code there, and I'd type it out.
Nice.
Yeah. And,
did it work?
Yeah, it would work.
Awesome.
And you start to understand, there's a syntax error, and you have to try and figure out what that is. And start to think more logically as well. I think it's a wonderful thing for children to do.
It's unfortunate now. I don't think kids do that at all. I mean, I talked to some people, and the older people, they remember that and then typing in the code. And everything you can learn by reading other people's code. Now, I just think they have all the games. They just put the disc in, put the card in, it's ready to go.
Yeah. So. Well, the Commodore 64, I remember it was like Run Star something or other.
Yeah.
But no, the early days, and then went on to I think my school had a micro B computer, and they had this great modem where you put the phone on. The phone handset on this box.
Nice. Those are really early modems. Yeah.
And it would scream into it. And I was sitting in the library, and I thought, what is this? I don't even know what it does. But I wanted to turn it. I clicked on it, and it turned on and asked for a password. And I was like looking around, thinking, and the name on the box somewhere, and I just typed it in, and it worked.
Hacker.
A full elite hacker.
That's right.
And but then the librarian busted me. What are you doing in there? Pulled me outside. So that was the end of that.
Yeah, somebody was just telling me the story where they hacked their school's computers and changed their grades and all that stuff.
Oh, yeah?
But it always ends the same way. They get kicked out of school, and it's really bad, and they're not rewarded for the hacking, and it's not seen as funny at all, especially these days. it's like a terrorist thing to hack anything or even just guess a password. But
yeah, you're a terriblest.
so after you started out with the Atari ST, did you keep going with computers? Did you study them in school, or what did you do next?
I really fell down a rabbit hole. I loved them. I just, and you know, school had like a little computer lab, but it was just full of 486s.
Yeah.
And I used to hide there from all the bullies, basically.
Oh, yeah.
You know, even though I'm a giant, I was bullied a lot because I didn't like fighting. I was more of a pacifist. And, and so we would go out and hide there and build stuff and make little programs, make fractals. You know, of course they took forever to render. You know, it would start with huge blocks and then render down smaller and smaller.
Nice.
And the fractals were always amazing. And then it just kept on going. I didn't really, I went more into the graphics side. I always loved graphics. Photoshop didn't exist or anything like that. But really basic paint programs and gaming as well, of course, being a kid. Yeah.
Excellent. And then did you continue with computers in school, or did you study something else?
I studied everything from sciences to, I liked maths, I liked science, I liked art.
Yeah.
And computing kind of tied those together in a way. And because I was, you know, on this dyslexic spectrum, somehow I just found it easier to do tests and writing on a computer. So if I would write by hand, it was just annoying, whereas on a computer it was really, I felt a lot more comfortable. So the teachers then let me do all my work through a computer. Nice. Which only lasted a little while because my friend then said, what, if he gets to, then I want to. And
that's right, I used to want to use a calculator on my tests, and they told me, you're not always going to have a calculator with you. Yeah. And then now I'm always like, no, you were wrong. Calculator right here, does anything I want. I can even talk to it. I don't even need to know what the symbols mean or anything. It's just like, multiply it for me, Siri, do it.
Yeah, and you know, I think it's really important. What you need to learn is the logic. How do you structure a good equation? How do you structure the math to get the answer you want? I actually remember in school and thinking that what's wrong with cheating? Because when you cheat, you're actually finding the answer. And in real life, the main thing is that you get the answer. And you have to be quite sort of ingenious to, write the answer on the back or in your little calculator watch.
People are talking about they had all the study notes on their calculator. They convinced their English teacher to let them use calculators on the English test. Right. It was like really obvious, but the teacher didn't see it, so it was fine and it totally worked.
But at the end of the day, you get the answer, and I think that's what's really important to be able to. The rest of it is just how good is your memory, really. And your memory is not that important these days. It's more because you can outsource.
And store everything on the computer,
which is obviously not the best thing to do, and it's not good to cheat. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying this whole obsession with cheating at school was really intense.
The thing I didn't like was always they wanted me to show my work. And I was always like, I did it in my head. It was 3 steps faster. My answer's correct. What's your problem? And I think that it was a cheating thing where they thought that I was cheating because I didn't show my work. But really, I was pretty clever, at least at basic math, and I had no trouble rolling through it.
I really enjoyed math, and it's one of those things that when you get through school and you just it becomes too easy, you get distracted. And that's when I just kept on going to the computer room to actually do more good stuff, more stuff that I actually enjoyed.
It's definitely one of the best places on campus, the computer lab or the chess team at lunchtime, those kind of things.
I loved the chess. And I was in the horse club, so that was totally sick. But
most schools don't have a horse riding club.
No.
But that's probably special. It's more of an Australian thing.
It's in Australia. I went to a farming school, so I taught you about
You're lucky they had computers at all, I think.
I was very lucky, no, that's true. But then I went on to, I left school because I was bullied so much. I was like, I've had enough of this. I'm going to get into real life. Realized that real life is bloody hard. And you have to, so I did a printing apprenticeship, and I ended up always being on the computer fixing stuff for the, getting ready for the printer, for the offset printing. And then I went back to school and found 3D animation.
Oh,
And
nice.
that was still on it was on a Pentium, but it was I think it was still a 486, and then they just upgraded to the Pentiums. But that was amazing. That was it was before 3D Max. It was 3D Studio,
Nice.
and it was really lovely to work on because it was the first time I went click. You create a sphere fully shaded, and you went, whoa! To shade that by hand would have taken me 2 hours. And I just put a shader on there, bang, and put reflections.
And the animation perspective, like, I mean, I learned about hand-drawn animation, and you draw this sketch, and then the guy moves his arm, and you draw the next sketch, and he moves his arm, and you draw the next sketch. Whereas with that sphere, I remember doing the early modeling, you could draw a path, and it would just follow the path, and it would do all the frames that you wanted, and it would look like an animation, which at the time we had nothing like that. We went from, having nothing to having full 3D modeling, which is, for me, was like too much. I made a balloon with a basket, and it like flew around. And it took me 2-3 weeks. It was very difficult. But what kind of things did you model? Did you get really into it? Could you make something detailed?
I made a big boat.
Nice.
And it took forever to render, of course. Fake water, just basically pulling CVs up and down.
Nice.
But and then I put this soundtrack, "What We Do with the Drunken Sailor," and it sort of made this
music, again, like a whole animation studio right there in your computer.
Right there. Yeah. And basically, I was meant to go to this school to finish graduation. School, but I was so obsessed with animation that I dropped every other course. And I was just in there from 8 in the morning and I had to leave for other people to come and do their lessons, or there'd be like a spare computer in the corner that I would keep on going.
Nice.
Because it was adult re-entry school, when I was adult, I was like 17 or something. But I could sort of had a little bit more leeway to do what I wanted. Anyway, I won some award for my animation, and then I found a place in the city that had Silicon Graphics machine.
Oh, SGI.
And they were like the bee's knees of graphics, right?
I think we had one in the computer labs, and we didn't know how to use it, and it had HPUX, but we wanted to use it. We wanted to know its secrets.
Right. And this was a massive Onyx machine, and IRIX is the operating system, so it's a flavor of Linux, of Unix, I should say. And it really, I found that, and I said, oh look, can I use this and teach myself Power Animator if I can just, bring out rubbish and do coffees and stuff? And they said, yeah, sure. Ended up never having to do any of that, but just could study a whole year on this machine.
Awesome.
And that was really fun. And I made Australia's first 3D animation with another guy together, like full 3D little short film.
Cool.
Then went on from there. And,
what was it called? Is it still out there on YouTube or anything?
It's actually not on YouTube.
You gotta find the old tapes, man. Digitize it.
I think it's on Betamax, like these.
You're gonna need some work, but that's what eBay's for.
Yeah,
and then also they have all those companies now that'll convert your videos. You have to put a lot of trust in that company, but they've gotten better. They're like much less likely to lose your videos now, I think. But
we'd worked all year on the animation, all year, every day. We didn't have a weekend off. I think the only weekends I had off was because I was sick. And then I'd go back in because we didn't know when we'd get kicked out of this really expensive lab.
Well, people don't realize how hard it was to have access not just to computers, but to a computer that could do the kind of work you want to do with 3D animation, like the rendering, even just having a good monitor. Nobody had great monitors like VGA, SVGA. We were just barely on the cusp of that.
Absolutely. These machines were millions of dollars worth of machinery. Basically, the military had them, and car companies, and space companies, NASA and stuff. And so it was very hard to get to this, and that's why we just worked so hard. And then right towards the end of the year, some university kept on coming out. I don't know if I should say this, but some university was coming in, and other people started pushing us out. And we're like, man, we've got to finish this animation, and they kept on pushing us out. So we'd sit in the Sun Microsystem lab, which was next door, and then log in to the SGIs and then do like a remote shutdown, and you just hear them go, "Fuck, this shitty SGI! These are crap machines. They keep crashing." And we're like, but it allowed us to finish the movie. We finished the movie, and then we we moved up to Sydney and
Awesome.
Started in the post-production facilities.
Nice.
There, working. Yeah.
So you're working on 3D animation, and you said you were interested in a variety of subjects at school, things like that. How did you learn about Bitcoin?
Well, I was always into alternative economies. It was like, especially after 9/11. 9/11 happened, and I thought, man, this world is screwed. What's going on? Like, is it really religious fanatics doing this like totally evil stuff of killing whoever they want to get back at whatever? And I thought, or is it money? What's money? Somehow, I somehow knew money had something to do with it. Because if you look at any sort of crime, you always follow the money, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm going to follow the money. And I started looking into the money, and then they were saying in Building 7, there was a lot of money in there, and all the research, and there was gold underneath the World Trade Centers, and that was shipped out weeks earlier. And it sort of got me down this rabbit hole. And I thought, oh God, and so let's build. I started really looking into alternatives to money. And so I built
gold and silver and those kind of things are really what you had at the time.
Right, and barter.
Yeah.
Let's look at barter. And so I built the world's first site where people could swap clothes with each other pretty easily. And I built a whole swapping engine so that you could choose from your closet, and then you'd get a little notification. And then you'd say, oh yeah, I like this T-shirt, and you look through my stuff. Oh, I really like that. And let's swap. But if you didn't like anything of mine, the deal would fall through, and I thought that was really unfortunate. It's not a very good way of trade.
Barter is very difficult. Even if you had more participants, if I could trade my T-shirt for your T-shirt for his T-shirt, some kind of triangle, and then all these different directions. But then the other complexity is, what if your T-shirt's more valuable than my T-shirt? There's like an unequal distribution here. So barter can be very difficult, and no one wants half of a goat. You want a whole goat or no goat at all. Half of it, unless you're going to eat it, I guess, isn't very valuable.
Exactly. And so I started looking into, well, how can I have some sort of, I didn't call it a token then, I forgot what I called it, but back then it was the same concept. How can I have some sort of token or voucher that can travel within that economy? But then I started thinking, well, then I'm a central bank again. Then I'm creating the same problem.
You're printing the goat tokens,
I'm printing the gold tokens, and I thought, I don't want to do that. The whole problem of the world is that these people can print money out of nowhere with interest that doesn't exist. And this is a corrupt system. We need to build a system that's not corrupt at its fundamental. So then I started researching what the cypherpunks were doing. Somehow I came across that because, being obsessed with computing.
Well, they'd been talking about digital money for a long time on the mailing list and, sci-fi books, William Gibson, and like credits and these kind of like generic ideas were always a constant theme in literature.
Absolutely. And so these things were really interesting. How do you get, and they were talking about a decentralized version of money, because you don't want a central thing, and the concepts were really blowing my mind that we can get a computer program to issue these, so we don't.
Well, everyone saw what happened recently there with Liberty Dollar and like e-reserve or gold reserve. There's certain things where they did have a centralized location, and they went up for a while, and then the government decided they were tired of them. So they went to the centralized location, seized all their servers, arrested the guy that ran it, and that was it for a Liberty Reserve or e-dollar. If you had them, you still had something, some kind of claim, but without those servers, you couldn't run your system, and it never came back.
Yeah, exactly. And so, but of course the double spend problem was unsolvable, and I thought, well, it's not going to get solved, it's unsolvable. So I went and was, sort of dropped the idea for ages, and then in 2011, late 2011, that Satoshi white paper came across my table. And because I was still sort of keeping track with what, the digital money side was doing. And I thought, holy smokes, she's done it. This is it. We're here. And I thought, I'll have a closer look later. Life was got in the way, didn't look at it until, again, a couple of, maybe a month later, when I really started delving into it. I thought, this is it. And then I fell down the rabbit hole and have been there ever since. And I ended up putting Bitcoin into SwapStyle back then, but no one knew what it was because it was mainly for women to swap, because women took more swapping clothes. And they're like, what's this Bitcoin address thing? And
it's too bad because it's right there. If you had the inequality problem, my dress is worth $100, your dress is worth $50.
Yeah.
I throw in $50 worth of Bitcoin, we can make ourselves a swap. Like barter can be fixed with a little bit of currency. And then the other way, if you just want to buy the dress for $100, just send the money right in. You don't even have to have anything to swap. So
well, the problem is nobody had Bitcoin. And it's the distribution problem that was really the thing.
There wasn't a lot of overlap with women trading clothes and people on the Silk Road. Not really.
And Bitcoin QT at the time, which was like Bitcoin
the only wallet.
Wallet. It was very cumbersome. You didn't have HD wallets. You just had, you had to back up your wallet.dat file every 50 addresses. Otherwise you'd lose it, and people lost keys like crazy. And then basically
they're gone forever. Never coming back. It's over.
It's over. And so I'm sorry, I've got a bit of a frog in the throat here. But yeah, and then Mt. Gox happened. And lost a lot of money in Mt. Gox.
Oh no.
Oh, thank you.
We lost a lot of money in Mt. Gox. Yeah, a lot of people did that. People even bought the Gox coins after the site has closed. You could wager. A lot of people thought, oh, Mt. Gox will be back in a couple of weeks, no problem, right? And they were going to really score when they opened it up. And no, it didn't happen that way. They went away. The money's still locked up in Japanese bankruptcy court or something. And I wouldn't hold your breath, but that's too bad. So how did you feel after you lost the money on Mt. Gox? Were you personally mad at Mark Karpeles, or just kind of sloughed it off, something that happened? Or?
I mean, I was, of course, really sad about my own loss. It wasn't that much money back then. I mean, it was.
Sure.
It was.
But
it wasn't extraordinary amounts like it is now.
It's a loss that gets more painful over time.
Right? But there's been people that have lost ridiculous thousands of Bitcoins, 20,000, 6,000 Bitcoin, stuff like that, and you just think, oh. Anyway, it really made me mad, on a personal level, but where the real anger came in, because I was so obsessed with the evolution that was happening, the revolution that was happening, the peaceful revolution in money, that we were building something else. And at that time, the media didn't understand Bitcoin. So they would have headlines like, CEO of Bitcoin runs away with everyone's money. And stuff like that.
Bitcoin's crashed, like Mt. Gox went down, and they're like, Bitcoin is down.
Bitcoin is dead. Bitcoin's been hacked. Stuff like that. And I remember this was after a slew of different attacks. We had InstaWallet, we had all these different services that would run away with people's money and were intransparent. And I remember thinking, look, Bitcoin is so transparent, you can check everything through a block explorer. Why can't you make it more transparent for exchanges? So me and my brother sat down to make a transparency protocol for exchanges to use, that where the users could always check how liquid an exchange is. How are they above reserve or at reserve? And we built that, and we thought, right, what exchange is going to take this? So we're trying to contact a few exchanges saying you should use this transparency protocol. Nothing. We didn't get any news back. So we thought, right. Well, what was the other problem with Mt. Gox? The other problem with Mt. Gox was that all the people holding USD in Mt. Gox, or I think they had euros or yen as well. But anyone holding fiat in Mt. Gox, it also got stolen because fiat is on the books of the exchange. So we thought, and it can't be insured, it can't be audited because the bank, they didn't want people to know whose bank account, like what banks are involved in. And so we thought, let's make an exchange where we implement the transparency protocol, and instead of fiat, we use gold. Because gold is a rare asset, it's a rare metal, and Bitcoin is a rare number. And these things can trade. And gold, you can have in a vault, you can audit it, it's serialized, the vault doesn't go off and speculate with the gold. It's just a block of metal.
Sure.
And it can be allocated to every person that owns it. So that if we go broke, it's not on our books.
Yeah.
As a startup, you don't want to just trust startups because startups 9 out of 10 fail.
Sure.
So we wanted it that users can buy gold and trade back to Bitcoin in seconds.
Yeah.
But have it audited, insured, and all the rest of the good stuff and it's separate from the business. It's not on the business's books. So if we go bust, liquidators can't touch our clients' assets.
Yeah.
And so that was the idea, and that's where Vaultoro was born.
Wow. Yeah. So the Mt. Gox, the negative thing from the Mt. Gox became a positive thing because you guys built this gold to Bitcoin exchange. Yeah. And like you're saying, as the other exchanges, like, I'm not sure Coinbase does this, but some of the other ones, I know BTC-E was alleged of doing this. They would take your Bitcoin that were deposited, that you were just holding there, and then they would go invest them in other things. And maybe they're very safe things, and they would only get 1 or 2%.
Why would they do that?
Because there's so much money. There's just so much money. If you're holding someone's Bitcoin, you can just lend it out to someone else or put it in this investment and that investment, get your 2% from the government bonds or whatever, and then you have more. And then it doesn't matter.
It's weird because Bitcoin goes up so much. Why do you need to make more?
It's a big risk too. If you take that money off the site and somebody wants it back and you can't give it to them, you have to say, hey, come back tomorrow. We'll have your money tomorrow. No, it's not supposed to be a savings and loan, but a lot of people are running it like it is.
Yeah, so how our transparency protocol works is that every user gets an anonymous ID, and that anonymous ID is only they know.
Sure.
We know it as well, I guess.
Yeah.
But only they know, and then they can log out of the system, so we don't know that they're checking. And we publish every single anonymous ID, and next to that, how much Bitcoin they've got and how much gold they've got.
Sure.
So they can log out, use Tor or whatever to check, so we never know that they're checking. So we can't fiddle with those numbers. And then they can check, our numbers are right, so we can assume other people's are the same. And they can go right down to the bottom and sum up everybody's Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And then we publish the cold wallet addresses right there and warm wallet addresses. So you can see, there's this many Bitcoin, this many people have this much Bitcoin, that's how much should be in the cold wallet. Checks out, boom. And on the gold side, we publish the vaulting facility statements, the BDO international auditing certificates, and the insurance paperwork. So you can always see that, all the gold's there, all the Bitcoin's there.
Well, I think that's a really good idea that someone like Coinbase or the other exchanges should adopt as well. I know Kraken years ago talked about this idea and said that they were going to have provable proof of reserves, and they never did it. Now, I think part of it is people are afraid of like a security problem. If you say, hey, I have this number of Bitcoins in one address, but even then you could do it in like 10 different addresses or 100, as long as you publish them all, as long as we can add them all up and it adds up to the right number, it doesn't matter how you want to secure it. You lose a little bit of your security by obscurity, but that's not really security. That's just something that makes you feel good because you're being secretive. But no, I think they should be adopting it. It's part of what makes Bitcoin great. You can look it up on the blockchain. You can see where the Bitcoin is. But unfortunately, their customers aren't demanding it. They want more things like 100 more altcoins and whatever the latest ICO garbage is. And we're seeing that happen. Even just today, Binance, the big exchange, is announced that they're going to shut down U.S. trading.
Is that right?
That's right.
Is that today?
They've got 90 days to withdraw your money or something like that, and then the trade engine won't work, but you can still always withdraw, so they're not trying to take your money. But it never made any sense, and I'm sure they're not giving back all the fees that they've been making off of U.S. customers and all that kind of thing. They can't undo that one, but we do see these exchanges keep going up and down, and Binance was the biggest one. They had a lot of trading volume. We'll see after they cut off the U.S. So.
Yeah, it's a real thing with the U.S. because the U.S. are so strong in terms of the regulatory stuff that I fear that the U.S. will fall behind. Things like the BIT license in New York really made New York suffer.
A lot of companies turned off New York just entirely. They're just like, forget it. I don't have the resources to deal with this. So for me, it's easier to ban your IP if you're from New York, block you if you put the New York or a zip code or whatever and your address, there it is, you're done. I've seen the same thing for the Europe anti-copyright type privacy laws where they don't want to bother with all the cookie things, so they just block Europe, and this page just comes up and says, sorry, you're in Europe, you can't read our local newspaper from Nebraska. We don't have the resources to deal with the European copyright laws.
No, it's really unfortunate, and the thing is that really I feel, you know, the UK, for instance, they put VAT on, which is a tax, on Bitcoin really early on, and took it off about a month later because you could see the brain drain. Happen. Everyone, all the
especially there, it's so easy to get to Europe, to get to somewhere else, to another country, another world.
And you really, if you're a legislator, you don't want to ban something that might be the future of finance if you're the hub of finance of the world. London and New York are really the hubs of finance, and New York screwed it up. Well,
it was funny because your reaction to Mt. Gox was to build a better exchange. Losky, Super Nintendo Losky, his reaction to Mt. Gox, which was a very personal one, I watched his speech in Las Vegas about it. You can watch it here on the World Crypto Network. And no, for him it was like his financial 9/11 and JFK assassination, and he was just like, we must stop this. People lost their money in Mt. Gox. I must protect those people. And in protecting them, he created this regulation system for New York, which might have set them behind as a state. So it's either focus on protecting the people or focus on being part of technology and part of the future. And I think your people are a lot better off being part of technology in the future rather than being protected like children.
And in London, the gold industry is self-regulated. But they have a very good, solid, because all the scams that we've seen in Bitcoin, the gold industry's had. I mean, it's 300 years, 3,000 years, 4,000 years old, right? So there's been a lot of scams in gold. So
we're getting ready to do the fractional reserve again, the gold tickets. Where I give you 10 gold tickets, but I only have 1 gold bar. That we're getting right close to that. They want to do that with Bitcoin. They're really excited to do that.
Well, I mean, this is again something where our transparency protocol would help, because we just can't do that. We have to show that's how many Bitcoin, and the blockchain shows it. And really, folks, if you are going to use an exchange to hold your funds, which you shouldn't, you should get your keys and hold them privately. At least a multi-sig if you're going to do anything, but focus on transparency. Push that these exchanges have some sort of transparency protocol in place. And Kraken does have a transparency protocol, but it's quite complex. It's the one that Gregory Maxwell and Peter Todd developed way back in the day. But you use a lot of cryptographic proofs, and you don't really know what's going on, and then you see a green tick, and you're like, well, I have to trust that because I don't understand math. And I really wanted to make ours grandma friendly, so the crack smoking grandma could do it.
Adding up the numbers is pretty simple, then looking at the two and that they match, and you can have it independently verified by the blockchain, which is the whole reason for Bitcoin. So,
So, I really wish that people would use technology more than legislation, because legislation, it makes a single rule for a vast amount of people with different use cases, and that doesn't always work. It can destroy things because you can also not see into the future you see the benefits that your legislation has, but you don't see the unseen. You don't see the stuff that it's screwing up. And actually when you sign up to Vaultoro, it has a checkbox saying, I certify that I'm not Syria, Iran, North Korean, or New Yorker. And I mean,
what a collection to be in, New York.
You don't want to be in that collection. What the heck? So that was more of a fun troll thing towards Berlowski. But it is true. We can't take New Yorkers because of that license.
It's pretty crazy. So you're still working at Vaultoro today. Where can people check you out on Twitter? Do you have anything else you're working on you want to tell people about?
Yeah, I mean, we're doing some interesting stuff. Right now we're raising funds, we're fundraising, so that's kind of boring. But
if you want to invest, certified investors, millions of dollars, come on down, contact Vaultoro.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a standard equity raise.
dark,
There's no strange ICOs or anything like that. We're pretty boring equity raise. But what some of the things we're working on is to build Vaultoro 2.0. So there'll be some more metals and also a few other shitcoins on there to trade.
People like them. Got to do what people like. I know.
Yeah, so I mean, people are holding some other coins and they wanted to trade for Bitcoin or for gold and stuff like that. So we're launching that, and we're also working on some really cool stuff with hardware modules, because I'm obsessed with this transparency stuff. I think the whole industry needs more of it, and so what we want to work on is these hardware modules that you can stick under pallets of gold, and they're sort of Internet of Things modules, and they would register anything to the blockchain, like to Bitcoin blockchain, where there's something wrong. Like say there's or something changes, not something wrong. There's something changes, like a weight change, air pressure change, or temperature change, movement, anything like that. It would ping, and then the vault operator would have to have a reason for that change. State change. So this is just an interesting thing, but at the end of the day, people can stay in touch with me on Twitter. At Vaultoro, that's Vault as in a gold vault, VAULT, and Oro, which is Spanish for gold. A little language lesson there, Vaultoro.
And they can check out Vaultoro at vaultoro.com, right?
That's the one.
All right, thanks so much, Josh, for the interview.
Thanks, Thomas, and keep up the great work with the World Crypto Network.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's amazing stuff. I love watching it every